I always thought about harming myself.
I'm shy. I struggled with making friends.
I never thought I could do anything. I have extremely low self esteem.
Lately, I've been eating my pain away. Just throw it back up. I've been struggling to lose weight.
Somebody said I don't fit in just because I wear my hair the way I like it.
1 out of 5 American girls suffer from mental health problems. Don't be that girl. Talk to someone.
Those thoughts I had are long gone, for I have a future I need to get to.
In order to get better, I had to do better. I learned how to make friends.
I believe in myself. That's when everyone else did, I set an example.
Instead of me eating everything, I started watching my calories. The weight is falling off.
I wanted to change my hair, but I decided it was for me. It's for me.
A PSA from the Curvy Girl Project.
And good morning. Welcome to Expose Under the Sun, sponsored by the Detroit Native Sun newspaper. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and I've got a very, very informative half an hour.
I am
with a couple of
talented,
special guests on my
accommodating,
show. But before
heartful,
we get started, our show
judicious.
is live, and our call-in numbers are area code 313-868-0342, 313-868-0351, or 313-868-4336. Website is www.tv33whpr.com, and you are watching us live from the phenomenal cities of Detroit, Michigan, under the auspices of the Honorable Mayor Mike Duggan, as well as the phenomenal city of Highland Park, Michigan, under the auspices of the Honorable Mayor Glenda McDonald. But before we get started, our topic today, what we're going to do is to address a lot of issues when it comes down to getting your voices heard and looking at the people that you are asking to be your voice, not just here in the local area, but also on the state level as well as on the federal level. And to let people know that there's an important vote that's coming up, as every vote is, but there's an important election that's coming up on the 6th of August, as that's the primary, and also for the 5th of November, which is the general election. And there's a presidential election this year. And usually that's what a lot of people do. They tend to go and they want to wait until the presidential elections to vote. But there's a lot of midterm elections that go on between those 4 years that the president is up for reelection and serves his or her term of office. But today, I've got a couple of special guests that are going to be on the show that are going to talk about an event that we've got through an organization called Building Black Brickmasters. And that organization is one that I'm proud to be a member of, as well as my guests. My guest that I have here in the studio, his name is Mr. Damon Lockett. Mr. Lockett, thank you for coming on Expose Under the Sun today.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm also waiting for another guest to call in, and I will bring him in once he calls in to the station. But let's first get started. We're going to have an event that's coming up this coming Saturday at the Rec Center in Highland Park, Damon. And talk a little bit about why we're having this event. And I know you were one of the main ones that really thought that it needs to be addressed, especially with the millennials in the city of Detroit. What is politics or politricks? Why are we having this event?
Well, we're having this because a lot of us are running with misinformation. So, understanding how politics works, It'll make the process work easy for us all. So we're gathering June 8th so we can all kind of get an idea of what we expect from our politicians, and so we know how to guide ourselves and where we want to go in the future. There's so many games being played in politics that our kind don't know where we fit in at. And it's time that we understand how the process works and how we can make it work for us.
Now, you mentioned our kind. When you say, elaborate on that term when you said our kind.
The people that are overlooked, the people that's not given the right opportunity because they don't understand the process in which it takes, to get where they want to go.
So do you think in terms of say that that's a group of individuals that may feel like their vote doesn't matter?
Absolutely. What majority of them being black men. I believe that black men feel that their vote doesn't count because they don't understand how it works. They don't understand how the process works.
Well, you're a very intellectual individual. Explain how you feel, or do you feel that the process works?
Well, I can tell you this. Politics is kind of something that comes later in life. Younger people really don't understand like how politics works because a lot of them are just living their lives. So they really don't understand. So me being young, when I was young, I didn't understand politics. So it was just something recently that I start to understand how it works. So I think that the older they get, the more wiser they become, the more they have an outlook on life and away from themselves, then they'll understand the process. All I'm saying is if we could get their attention now, we could move a lot faster than being stagnant.
So the stagnation that you may see, do you think that hurts? Because the main thing when it comes down to voting is that voting, there's a lot of different layers. It's like peeling back on an onion. There's a lot of different layers to that when it comes to voting. Voting, you elect the president.
Right.
You elect your congresspeople, your senators, your governor, your state representatives, your judges, your school board members.
Absolutely.
Your city council members.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing, that when you have people that are looking at trying to find folks to make the laws or initiate the laws in the city or the state or the country that they live in, voting is imperative. Voting is important. It's not telling you who to vote for as much as telling you to vote.
Right.
To let your voices be heard.
Right.
And now, do you think that there's a lot of young people that, when you mentioned about black men not voting,
Yes.
why is it then that black men are not voting in the numbers that black women are voting? What is it that black women see, my question, Damon, that black men are needing to see?
So who is the campaign against to stop from voting? They all they do is make it harder for the black man to vote. They lock us up. They give you the misconception of having a felony, having a felony on your record. You can't vote, in which we both know that that's not true.
Right.
But the propaganda is built up so much against us. We really don't have an outlet to understand how it works. So we resort to the things that we know, and unfortunately, they're just not the right things. But I can tell you, as a black man, I've done things that I'm ashamed of, that I probably should have been in prison for. But the Most High has guided me through it. And I know if I can make it, sitting here at this desk telling you that I made it, I know it's tons of young men that can make it as well. All they have to do is understand what they have ahead of them, the things that they can grasp, the things that is attainable to them, then they'll get it. But, if you only know what you know, you can't be a rocket scientist if you only been on Schoolcraft and Myers your whole life. Like, that just doesn't make sense. So the opportunities have to be presented where they believe that people are listening to them. That's just what it is, because the black man feels that nobody is listening to him. Who do we go to that we can say, you're listening to us, thank you for listening to us? I'm talking about whether it's a mental health crisis, whether it's being a father at home that's struggling, and you can't let your kids see you struggle. God knows how that make you feel. I'm just saying, it's just so much that a black man goes through. We all want to be better. We all want the glory. We all want it all. But at the end of the day, everything is so pressured against us not to make it, so not to make it, that we need to team up and and we need to understand that we can. We just need to be surrounded by the right people.
So when you say the right people, is that some of the older generation, some of the guys that or the women that have gone through this before? What's the generation that you will listen to, or that you need to hear the information from, or that you need to speak to? Because like you just said, you want to be heard.
So it's a wealth of information out there, right? But what we lack is, like, we can communicate all day, but if you're not comprehending, we're both just wasting our time, right? So it has to be, comprehension has to come in at some point. So we have to be able to touch the ones that are comprehending. They can go spread the message and make the ones that they're around them comprehend, and then to spread like wildfire. But you can't communicate with people that don't want to comprehend. We're all just wasting our time. So the people that we're looking for, it's not an age limit. It's just about people that's trying to comprehend the concept of being better all around, even in your community. Like cutting your neighbor's grass, taking your neighbor's trash out, protecting your neighborhood, making sure there's no crime in the neighborhood, doing the moral things that's right. Like, don't kill your neighbor. Like, we're literally in the terms of right now, like, we are killing each other. Let's just be honest. You got the Indians, they got all the Dunkin' Donuts. You got the Chaldeans, they ditched the liquor stores. Now they selling all the marijuana in the world. They closing the liquor stores, opened up all marijuana shops now. It's way more marijuana shops than it is almost liquor stores now. I'm just saying, like, where do we win? Chinese people, what do they got? They got the beauty place. What do black people have? All we have is the most problems, because all the propaganda is against us not to achieve greatness. So once you tell a person that over and over again, mentally they're going to say, it's set up against me not to achieve greatness. So what do? They harm each other. I'll give you an example. The Chaldeans came and they took over all of the marijuana. Your crime skyrocketed because your young black male in the city that don't want to go to jail selling cocaine or selling heroin, he had no problem with taking a risk selling weed because it's a slap on the wrist. It's not illegal. They took that from them. So what they do now is hard crime. Now you got carjacking. Now your robberies up. Now they messing with elderly people. Now your kids at risk. Now your wives at risk. Like, all of these things happen because the lack of us voting and the lack of utensils for us to be great. We don't have them, and if we don't have them, they're not at our disposal in our face. You know what is at disposal at our face? Crime, bad, scamming, all of these things, because temporary satisfaction is what works in a community like ours. It's not the long-term goal. It's not to have trust fund kids, trust fund babies. We don't know nothing about that. Half the community don't know the difference between an S Corp and an LLC. They'll tell you they got an LLC and they got the best business in the world. We're misinformed. We have to put a platform on where they can be informed, where you could take one person that'll listen and take it to 3 people that'll listen, that'll take it to 10 people that'll listen, and eventually we got a community of people that's listening, that's sticking together like we should. But the propaganda is for us to go against each other. This is how it is. And until we can get past that, until we can get past the propaganda and understand what we have in our heart and not what's on us and what's in us, then we can make a difference, because the black community, they feel like they have to have $1,000 clothes on to feel secure, and that's so far from it, because I bet guaranteed you don't have that money saved. The outfit that you have on that costs $4,500, you don't, but it makes you feel good, and that's unfortunate that we have to look for that to feel good. You know,
that's like a temporary fix.
But that's my point. That's how we are. That's how we are. We don't think long term. Everything for us is instant gratification. Everything. That's why you rob so much, because it's instant gratification. I can get this right now. I don't have to work for it. But they set it up like that. They set it up to make us think we can't read. Now you put a book in one of our face, we can't read because they programmed you to think that you can't read. Like, it's just set up like that. We have to let them know that it's like we can break the barrier. Like, it doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't. It just doesn't have to be like this.
I got also my other guest, Bert Johnson. Thank you for coming on XB Under the Sun. Can you hear me? Bert, can you hear me? Bert, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Okay, Bert, you're on?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, yes, we can hear you now. This is my other guest.
I'm enjoying this conversation.
appreciate you coming on the show, Bert. But this is Bert Johnson, former state senator for the great state of Michigan. Bert, you've been hearing some of the comments that Damon Lockett has been making. Did you want to go and give your comment?
First of all, Damon Lockett he's given a TED talk. It's an instructional conversation about what is really not working in spaces where we are. So if I never got to speak, Damon Lockett is dropping science. But there's a lot to be unpacked here. Our people in this country are hurting in ways they're measurable. They're not immeasurable, but we don't always stop to take a temperature for what's happening. If it's as common every day as someone says, "Hey, so and so has cancer," and then you kind of hear that information and you keep moving. Well, our people have been poisoned. There's a poisoning of our food supply, our water supply, our air. There is an inadequacy that exists at the public education level. Black folks still languish under a below average health care access opportunity. So, we're in dire straits as it relates to our regular lives, the whole surviving thing. And then there's this whole civic activity and voting and activism and whatnot. And many of us have described it as apathy over the years. I think it's indifference, given the fact that our people don't recognize or utilize politics to survive or to get ahead. So black folks have kind of been left out and pushed to the side. We know that, and we have found our own ways to cope, to deal, and to survive, and in many instances to thrive. And voting is, it's pretty low on the list for some folks because it's just not how they get ahead. I can't blame them for that. What we're trying to do is we're trying to rejuvenate some interest in the conversation because it matters who's in office. It matters who the judges are. That's the first most important person being elected across our community every time we go to the ballot is the judges. And if you ask people, Darwin, who's most important, you'll hear everything from president to mayor to senator. No, it's the judges, because many of them, if not all, enjoy either a 6-year stint in office or a lifetime appointment in the case of being appointed to a federal bench. And that just means when it's federal, you have people being appointed in their 40s. If the wrong person gets appointed by a Donald Trump or a Joe Biden, then that person likely is on that bench for the next 40 or 50 years making decisions about your life without asking you a single question. If it's a state judge, or as we know it, a county judge, those people are elected in 6-year bursts. And you have only to imagine, what does it take to get a judge unelected? Well, a whole hell of a lot. So when those people get elected in those 6-year stints, and until they age out after 70, a lot of those people are going to be there for a few decades, codifying rules that a lot of times don't work for our community.
Well, Bert, I'm glad you brought that up. The question I want to ask you then, having been a former legislator, do you think then that term limits are important? Because a lot of people just say they want to wait until, especially like when you talk about Congress, where they're pretty much like in it for duration. And some people, like the late John Conyers was in office for a long time. John Dingell was in there for a long time. Nancy Pelosi and others, Maxine Waters. But do you think that there needs to be term limits on those individuals? Because they, on a federal level, even though the president, now they've got term limits on the president, they've got term limits on the governor, who's a state level. But do you think that there needs to be term limits on those individuals that could be ones making these laws that you're saying, in terms of, say, that regulate what happens with black people, brown people, yellow people, white people? It doesn't really matter. But do you think that there needs to be some kind of a term limit on them as well?
No, I'm not a fan of the term limits, and I'll tell you why. In every other professional scenario, what we hope is that we get the most experienced person. If my pipe bursts in my basement this morning and I need to call a plumber, I want the most experienced person that I call to show up to provide. I want them to fix it, number one, and then I want them to tell me what happened, why it happened, how to keep it from happening again. and I want them to have enough business and enough experience to be able to give me a very reasonable price. Only in the instance where we don't like somebody who is elected do we say, man, we should have some term limits because we got to get rid of these people. What we really have to do is we have to get enough people interested in our community to make the decision to get rid of somebody who's not cutting it. Otherwise, if we can put the right person in there, think about it. It can be nirvana for a pretty long time. And we don't just do it in one instance. We don't just get a John Conyers elected, get a Carolyn Kilpatrick elected, and that's enough. We got to then get others elected who will do the same good work, who will bring home the stuff for us, who will measure what we need and then take it out to the places where they're having to serve, and then get us something back for having sent them out there. So I'm not a big fan of the term limits because that trumps experience, and that's just not a good thing.
So let me ask this then, Bert. So then, are we looking to try and groom the Damon Locketts to be the future Bert Johnsons or the future legislators that we need in the state as well as on a federal level?
Always. And let me put it like this: Black folks, African Americans, if you want to call us that, that's a crazy term, but we're the only people in the nation who, when we make it, quote unquote, we make it, and whatever your definition of making it is, we're the only people that look back at our streets from the suites and we dog them. What Damon is trying to tell you is that the cats on the block, those are the last free people in our community. So you can't have, for instance, the Bernstein Advantage by the Bernstein family. Everybody has seen those commercials. You can't have the Bernsteins without having the Purple Gang in Detroit, because they come out of gangs in the streets that were incredibly, probably the most violent that Detroit has ever seen. Look at the Italians, look at the Irish, look at the Arabs, look at the Jews, look at everybody, and understand that those people in the suites have never left their people in the streets. They groom people out the streets to get into the suites. Joe Kennedy, if he were here, he would tell you that he dreamt a little dream of having his sons run the country. And so he put John Fitzgerald up and he put Bobby Kennedy up. Now, there's some bad karma that goes along with what Joe Kennedy dreamed, because Joe Kennedy was a dope dealing killer. He was Prohibition's main man. So the biggest dope boy in the country decided that he was going to put his sons in the highest office in the country. And it worked out. They got there, but they also, they live with what we call commonly the Kennedy curse. My point is, we're the only people who are walking away from our free people. And what do I mean when I say free people? The brothers and sisters in our streets, the ones who are less educated, but are still very present and have not left us. Those are the ones who are not encumbered by great big fancy mortgages and cars and all this status and title and all that kind of stuff. These are people still willing to engage in what Dr. King called risky business. One of the problems is, Darwin, the people who think that they have made it, they're not reaching back to lift and pull, and they're not utilizing the compassion that God gave us to care enough for our people to make sure we all are able to rise because of a rising tide. So it's incumbent upon us to reach out and lock arms with brothers and sisters who still live in the neighborhoods we all came from, who wouldn't dare think about leaving, who wouldn't dare think about putting down their fight for our people, and figure out how to move forward together. Because the guy who's got a $400,000 house and a $100,000 car, that man's not going to risk anything to save his people. That man is already comfortable. He's where he wants to be, and he's not going to look back. But the guys in the streets, those are the guys still saying, hey, man, we can make a move, but what move should we make? So we all need each other.
Well, Bert, you are really eliciting a lot of reaction and a lot of emotion from my guest, from Damon Lockett. But we got to close in about a couple more minutes. But I'm going to give Damon a chance to make a closing comment based on the things that you were saying, because there was a lot of reality, a lot of truth to power with what you were saying. But Damon, give you a couple minutes to kind of give you a little closing statement. Bert, I'm going to let you wrap up with a closing statement. Then I'm going to make the announcement again about the politics and politics that we're having on the 8th of this month. Damon.
Man, the fight just started. We at the starting line. June 8th, be there. The conversation must be had. Hey, we working numbers. You know, if we want to get something done, we working numbers. Building Black Brick Masters has a team of geniuses ready to accommodate any problem that you may have. Mental problems, literacy problems that you're scared to acknowledge or you don't want to acknowledge, you don't want nobody to know. Listen, tap in, follow us, Building Black Brick Masters on Instagram as well as Facebook. Make sure y'all tap in, man. We want to be unlimited resources to one another. We shouldn't have to go outside of our community to look for nothing. Everybody else spend their money with their own kind 7 to 10, 12 times before it leave the neighborhood. We don't even push our money one time in the neighborhood. As soon as we spend $1, it's gone. We have nothing in return. We got to do better. We expect better, and we can get better if y'all just team up and we just team up all in one and unite. It's not about a Democrat thing. It's not about a Republican thing. It's not about an independent thing. It's about the right thing and what's ours.
Bert, I'm gonna give you a minute. We gotta wrap up. So if you can kind of cut it short, like about 30 seconds, real quick.
Man, listen, what Damon Lockett just said, everything he just said is the gospel truth. Number one, I want to thank you, Darwin, for having this forum and this conversation and being right here on WHPR, the great TV 33. But number two, the Building Black Brick Masters organization that we all belong to, man, is a group with a mission on the rise, and we are coming to a corner near you. Stay tuned. Be there on June 8th with and for us, and we will make some decisions together about the future of our community. I appreciate you, brothers.
Appreciate you, Damon, for coming on the show. We definitely have to have you come back again and do a follow-up, on this show.
I appreciate you as well.
But you've been watching Expose Under the Sun, sponsored by the Detroit Native Sun newspaper. My special guest today, Mr. Damon Lockett, Mr. Bert Johnson. But again, thank you for coming on this show today. And again, follow Politricks. That's going to be held on Saturday, June the 8th from 12 to 2:30. And that's going to be located at the Ernest Ford Recreation Center at 10 Pitkin Street on the corner of 3rd and Highland Park. You don't want to miss this. Please be safe. Let someone that you love them, and let somebody know. Please come out. Just as Damon said, just as Bert is saying, we're all one, and we have to live together as one. Have a great rest of the day.
Here at the Full and Fabulous Curvy Girl Project, we don't just focus on health, beauty, and self-esteem. We also offer an amazing summer program for young ladies ages 12 to 18. For more information, visit our website at fullandfabulous.org. See you soon.